numbers. 43 people watch me dump. Amazing. Just amazing. Anyways. What shall we discuss this morning? What shall we talk about? What is worthwhile to meditate while you're dumping and taping? Much like our bodies, our minds dump. Reality is so large, so huge, so enormous. We'll never grasp all of it. But the parts we do grasp, we share, we dump into each other. So, all the great thinkers, philosophers, they're just grasping a little tiny portion of everything there is. Some of them are actually very helpful, and they show us elements of ourselves that are hidden in our hidden to ourselves. But what do they really know? Nothing. Nothing at all. What we don't know is much more than what we do know, because we're so limited. I mean, just think about it. We have to take a dump every morning. We have to shit, literally. We cannot exist without shitting. That's kind of ridiculous. And yet it's real. Can't exist without eating. Right now, I don't have any gas. The gas ran out. I'll bring it back until like later on today. What I may get one of these little electric pans to make my coffee. I haven't been able to drink coffee yesterday or today, this morning. Well, I mean, I drank it. I went down to make the Dungeons and Dragons. I drank a cup of coffee there, but it was late in the afternoon, not in the morning when I like to drink it. But this whole thing brings me back to the point that it's the fragility of our existence, Say hi to the cat. What did I got to do? Man, I gotta clean the floor in this bathroom. It's filthy. Hola, saluda. Fragility of humanity. Fragility of life in general. I mean, life is fragile. And yet, somehow, cockroaches have been around for millions of years. They live for a few days, maybe a week or so, I don't know. I don't know what the life of a cockroach is, but they don't live too long. But they have a lot of babies before they die. And those babies have babies, and those babies have babies, and those babies have babies. And at the end of the day, they have cockroaches since the time of the dinosaurs. Or cockroaches at the time of the dinosaurs. find that pretty amazing, pretty fantastic, and pretty beautiful in a sense. That life, this very frail thing called life, has managed to propel itself for such a long time, and the number of species that have become extinct. You know, cockroaches and alligators haven't. Crocodile snakes have been around for millions of years. Cockroaches, snakes, alligators, um, turtles. Turtles have been around for a very long time. Um, Mosquitoes, spiders, arthropods in general, octopi. Octopuses have been around for a long time. Squids. Um, what else? It's been around for a long time. But they exist because they reproduce. They have babies, and those babies have babies, and babies have babies, and millions of years ago, there was a first cockroach, like one of the first cockroaches, and that blows me away. Now we don't know exactly what mutation or the whole panspermia thing, that life actually comes from other stars and is brought about into the earth to fertilize it and to terraform it. Um, Makes sense, because where did life come from? Where does a cockroach come from? With the whole theory of evolution is that there's a trilobite or some other arthropod, and it mutates into a cockroach, right? But it is so far fetched when you meditate on it. How would a trilobite become a cockroach? What mutation? First of all, it has to leave the sea. It has to, leave the sea. So that's the first step. The trilobite has to walk out of the sea, and then he's into the land, and somehow, it develops the antenna and the thinner legs, and between a trilobite and a cockroach, which supposedly are the same family, a very huge difference in distance, like between chimpanzees and humans. Our genetic structure is not so different, but it is different enough that a chimpanzee is a chimpanzee and a human is a human. There's no mistaking one for another. Someday, if we differentiate enough as a species, we'll probably split into different species ourselves. It'll be like Morlocks and Eloi, like in Voyage. What is it called? The Time Machine. Time Machine. H.G. Wells. Oops, sorry. H.G. Wells and the Time Machine. I don't know if you guys have read it, but in the story, the time traveler um, travels into the future, like I don't know if it's millions or thousands of years in the future, and he finds that humankind is split into two species. These albino cannibals that live under the earth, and these really beautiful kind of like cute little Californians, beach bums. They live above the earth, and the albino cannibals are really intelligent, and they have a whole, functioning technology and society. But they're cannibals, and they eat the guys on top. And the guys are kind of like, these happy hippies that go around smoking weed and frolicking in the woods naked. They're very nice, but they get eaten by the cannibal underground dwellers. So, actually, the Vedas, the Srimad Bhagavatam, speaks about that. It says that sometime, in the late part of the Kali Yuga, mankind is going to split into two different species. There's going to be a very tall, blonde species that is going to be vegetarian and, breatharian and live, in harmony with nature. And there's going to be a very tall, short, green species that is going to feed on the vegetarian guys. That's just what the Vedas say. Which I know are good goblins. Elves and goblins, I guess. So elves and goblins are in our future, not in our past, maybe. So these are the thoughts that I have as I take a dump in the morning, and I share it with you because actually it's the most viewed um, YouTube series in channel. I mean, I put the Dungeons and Dragons, nobody wants to watch it. I put my 420, get stoned and pontificate, nobody wants to watch it. I take a dump, and everybody wants to watch it. You guys are sick. You people are weird. But I don't care. I actually have said it many times before. I'll repeat it. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for me. At some point, I'm probably going to look back at these tapes or these recordings and go like, wow, what was I thinking? Or maybe not. Time will tell. What I do know is that I need to go find a cup of coffee after I finish here. Can't wake up without coffee. It's like I'm sleepy. Let me get a water warmer, a little water warming machine. And I warm some water and make some hot water to make coffee. It's probably the best way. But in the meantime, I'm morning dump. Life is a dream within a dream. Edgar Allan Poe. I wish I had the poem with me. Life is a dream within a dream. Something about birds. I can't remember it. It's beautiful though. Life is a dream within a dream. Yeah, it's very true. Very true. The other one was, am I a butterfly dreaming that he's a man, or am I a man dreaming that he's a butterfly dreaming that he's a man? Butterfly means transformation, means catharsis, means uh, metamorphosis. One of the great books by Franz Kafka, Metamorphosis. Man turns into a strange cockroach-looking thing, then starves to death in his room. Doesn't come out. His family are afraid of him, so they keep him in the room, I guess. Something like that. Read a long time ago. My mind is filled with books that I've read. Found a sock. What is a single sock doing? It's one of mine that top. It's one of my socks. So my mind is filled with the books I've read. Time Machine, Metamorphosis, Brave New World, 1984, Um, Piers Anthony and the Incarnations of Immortality. The first one was about death. It's called On a Pale Horse. No, the Incarnation of. I'm gonna check it out. Brilliant series of books. Why was there never a movie made about the Incarnations of Immortality by Piers Anthony? That would be such a fantastic movie. Somehow Hollywood missed out. Instead of them making all this crappy shit, and they could make some really good stuff. But they don't. I just watched It Conquered the World, The Outer Limits, 1932, 33. Sorry, 35. No, 1940 something. It was after World War II. 1945 probably. And it's an alien that looks like a big cauliflower. No, not a cauliflower. Some type of vegetable. Uh, he's got these beady eyes and these claws, these uh, crab claws. Anyways, uh, sends these little bat-looking things to snap in the back of the people's heads and turns them into slaves. It was like the earlier version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Really bad version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. But the parallels with the communist the fear of communists, it was so clear. It was so brilliantly clear the propaganda aspect of the movie. Really bad movie. It was a monster movie. A monster from Venus that comes to take over the earth. But it was not a monster movie. It was a movie about communists and why they have to be murdered. Because they are monsters from Venus. So when you see an old movie like that, you can digress the amount of propaganda that is being levied for that time by that movie. It's really amazing. It's like watching the Jude Sues by the Germans, or what was the other one? Propaganda movie. So it brings you back the idea that the whole Hollywood setup is actually controlled by the military and by the uh, propagandists, which goes back to Goebbels and all that. So it's pretty clear cut. But what's interesting is to see how they think in those days about what they're doing. They always justify their propaganda with a monster from Venus, for instance. Where the communists are a monster from Venus, and then the good guys go around killing these people that have been turned into slaves of the monster from Venus because Venus. Uh, the damage done to mankind by these type of uh, compromised ideas and thoughts. It's pretty large. And it's still going on. It's not changed at all. If anything, it's just got hyped up. It got propaganda with YouTube and Google and everything is just multiplied by 1,000. It's like propaganda on speed. Because it's about human programming. It's about programming what we think, how we think, and it works. It works People watch these little screens all the time, and they get in their heads that things must be a certain way because YouTube says it. And smart people see beyond it and take a dump. Or they don't. Who knows? I I got down in my meditation to the insignificance of everything we do and say and think. It's all just this tiny little grain of sand in an ocean of samsara, an ocean of human suffering. We can reduce our own suffering. That we can do. We can reduce it enormously. But eventually we'll get hungry, or we'll have to take a poo, or we'll have to, you can go into the mountain and to the cave and live in the cave. But eventually you'll have to come down from the cave and be amongst your people and we're collectivists. We're not built for total isolation. People do it. People actually go into total isolation. I've actually met people that have done that. You know, there was a Rinpoche in Colorado. What was his name? Anyways, he went into a cave to do his. I think it was a 4 year or 5 year, 6 year. I don't know. A lot of years. Isolation, meditation, and the cave he chose was at the bottom of a hill where they used to bury people. And if you know anything about Tibetan burials, what they do is that they cut the people up in little pieces and they throw them to the vultures, because that's the process of um, giving back to nature what nature is giving to you when you die. I love it. I think it's fantastic. Well, this Rinpoche. Um, Rinpoche decided to live in a cave under the hill where the bodies are thrown to the vultures. And it would happen that many times, pieces of human flesh would fall. When the vultures are feeding, they would fall down where the cave was. So he was in Colorado in Crestone. I went there when I was there. This Rinpoche from Tibet. And one of the Zen monks, one of the students, one of the devotees of Richard Baker, I think it was Gerald. I think it was Gerald, big German guy. Asks, no, it was Randy. It was Randy. It was an American, thin American guy that was very into meditation. So Randy asks Rinpoche. He says, Rinpoche, what did you eat when you were living in that cave? I mean, you were living in a cave, and all there was human flesh that was thrown to vultures. What did you eat? And the Rinpoche said, no distinctions. Like, like, oh, no distinctions. Meaning, if you ate the cadavers and the bodies of the dead or not, it didn't matter, because he was beyond that. He was in the realm of distinction. Think about that, and I say, well, okay, that's cool. Go in a cave, eat body parts from dead people. Take it away from the vultures. You're fighting a vulture to get a piece of leg, ham bone. It's a weird thing. But so this guy did. I mean, this guy also was captured by the Chinese when the Chinese went into Tibet and just beat the shit out of those guys. And he was put into a jail cell for, I think it was 9 years, in isolation and tortured daily. They would beat him. They would starve him. They would put, little, uh, needles under his fingernails and shit like that. He was a survivor of the Chinese purge of the Tibetans, and he was a very high level monk. He was one of the higher level monks of the whole Dalai Lama enclave. But he didn't escape with the Dalai Lama. When the Dalai Lama escaped the Chinese, he actually got caught, and he was taken to China, and he was put in a jail and tortured. And somehow he escaped that too. So it's an amazing guy. Very old guy, tiny little old guy, very short, dark skinned, tiny, very Asiatic looking. I mean, totally Tibetan. You would not see one of these guys walking around in Montana, I suppose. But amazing guy. And one of the most renowned, important Rinpoches of Tibet that survived the whole purge. So he's not just any guy. He's a guy that knows what he's doing. What is he doing? What is it? What is it all about? What is that meditation? How does one thing? I mean, how does as a young guy you go into a cave and you meditate for 5 years or whatever, and you eat cadaver, and then later on in life you get captured by the Chinese and you get thrown into another cave in a dungeon, in a Chinese dungeon, and you eat bread and water or whatever the Chinese, a bowl of rice every 3 days, whatever they gave him to keep him alive. How does that work? What's that all about? My little niece likes to leave her clothes in the bathroom, and they fall on the floor, which is filthy and chaos results. So yeah, total respect for this guy. But again, at the end of the day, he's just a grain of salt in an ocean of suffering. He suffered more than the average guy, and he came through the other side. And somehow, within all that suffering, he was able to find inner peace, to be able to, develop his inner peace, which I find remarkable. Very peaceful guy. When you saw him in person, he was just this chill dude, little old guy that smiled and walked around the Colorado mountains as if nothing. And he had a huge entourage of devotees and students that absolutely worshiped him. He was like this really worshipable guy, this amazing guy that everybody thought was, the best thing since curdled milk. Rightly so, rightly so. When you listen to his story, you can get the idea that this is not just an ordinary guy. This is a guy that does extraordinary things. But at the end of the day, it's just a guy that went through a lot of shit. In an ocean of guys that go through a lot of shit. There must be millions, hundreds of millions of remarkable, beautiful, intense, marvelous people that we've never met, that we will never meet, that went through things, if not similar, because this is a very specific example of stuff that happened in Tibet, certainly to par in intensity and all that. All the kings and queens of Europe, all the holy men, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Krishna, all these beacons of intensity, human intensity, whatever. You don't really differentiate them in the end. They're all pretty much the same. They're all pretty much the same. I mean, obviously, I mean, we can't look at Jesus and then look at, you know, Joe Schmo that sells uh, used tires down the street and look at them in the same way that they are. In the bigger picture, they are the same somehow. They are the same without being the same. This is a paradox. The human spirit, the human that human essence is shared universally by everybody. You know, there is no distinctions really between one human and another. It's like, you know, drops of grains of rice. Grains of rice. We're all grains of rice. Or leaves in a tree, or grains of salt in the ocean. We have the same characteristics, we have the same potential, we have the same, we are the same. And we're not. Obviously, you know, Adolf Hitler was not the same as Brad Pitt, was not the same as Jeffrey Epstein, was not the same as Jesus Christ, was not the same as Beethoven, was not the same as. They're all distinct and different. Dalai Lama. They're all distinct and different and unique, and each one brings its own story into the fold of mankind's story, the collective story of mankind. But there's so many, there's so many stories, we could never know them all. It would be for any one human being to know the stories of all the other human beings around. Even if he was immortal and had all the time in his head, you would literally have to spend every second, every day listening to their stories to know them. So a human being can't know a human being, ever. It's not possible. Historians uh, historians show us trends. They show us trends of mankind, like, you know, if you look at a map of the world and the impact that mankind has on land, well, it starts with Europe. That's where the most impact can be seen clearly, physically. The cities, the urban impact, you know. But it goes everywhere. I mean, it goes all over the place. There is no end to the human impact. My cats had a little vomit. They vomited. It must have been this cat over here. I gave her some chicken last night, and she puked it. So we have to clean that mess. I'll clean it in a minute. But she's got food, she's got everything, and I don't have any coffee, so I'm gonna go out and get some coffee. The house. Look at my garden, though. You guys have seen a garden more beautiful than this? The urban garden. The house looks kind of dirty and crazed. I haven't had time to clean it up or any energy. I've been writing too much. But look at this wonderful garden. This is this big one, I believe, is a calabaza. Pumpkin. It's a pumpkin. That one is garlic. That one is parsley. oregano, a couple of pines, 1, 2, 3, 4 pines, 5 pines, 4 pines. There's an avocado tree over there, which is getting totally eaten by the I have to transplant that avocado tree. It's going to die. Let me just give him this space. I don't know. I'll put him in a big bucket. He'll be fine. I need to work on the garden a little bit today. Need to clean it up. But yeah, that's my garden. That's my cat. Cat and garden. Garden and cat. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next show. Bye.